You're fighting in the car all the way to church.
Right.
Sitting in the parking lot at church, fighting at the church. Kids are rambunctious in the back seat.
Yes.
And we have to get these kids, and it's a lot of kids.
Grab your Bible.
Grab my Bible and go inside.
Yeah.
And you can see it on our faces.
Yes. And smile with these people.
And then this is one of the things I can't stand, and this is just a sidebar. One of the things I can't stand about myself
right.
when I walk into church is that I have just gone through that situation. Somebody comes up and they're like, "Hey, Wayne, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm good, brother. How are you?"
Yeah,
and I'm
so
completely different.
Yes.
So fake.
Yeah.
When I should have just said, "Bro, I really need you to pray."
Right.
I need prayer actually right now. Can you pray with me?
Sure.
Conflict avoidance.
Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess really what we mean is avoiding confrontation.
Yes.
Or ignoring conflict.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
What does that look like? Say Leanne did something that made me really upset.
Right.
Right. But I want to be a good husband. So I sweep it under the rug.
Yes.
And say 2-3 days later, that same thing happens again. But this time I'm a little bit more frustrated.
Yeah.
Right. So it's incremental. And then I'm still like, I'm going to be a good husband. So I sweep it under the rug again.
Stair stepping. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then a few more times of that happening, sweeping it under the rug.
Right.
What is that stuff under the rug at this point? It's a bomb.
Yeah. Dynamite.
It's going to blow through our anger towards our wives.
Yeah.
It's a very negative thing.
Yeah.
It's very bad for marriages.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's getting ready. Yeah. You're going to have a bad weekend.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're going to have a
few days,
awful weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And people avoid conflict like that for several reasons. One, like I just said, it could be that you're trying to take the high road.
Right.
You know, trying to be the better person.
Yeah.
Or it could be you just don't feel like.
Yeah, you just want to avoid it.
Yeah. Or you feel like you don't have time to deal with this right now. You know, you're in a hurry or something. Or it could be that you just despise confrontation and you avoid it like the plague.
Yeah. Type B personality or whatever they call it.
Right. And so just looking at that, what happens to the marriage? Like what starts to bubble up?
Yeah. It starts to disintegrate, you know, or it starts to decay. And now there's some definite animosity between you two.
Yeah.
And
a wedge is driven in.
Yeah.
It really is.
Uncomfortability in the house. There's elephant in the room or however you want to say it, but there's no longer peace in your home.
And that bomb is going to blow on the stupidest, smallest little thing.
Yep.
And then you haven't said anything to her.
Right.
All this time you've been trying to be a good dude, a good husband. You haven't said anything when you should have.
Yes.
You know, you can actually take the high road and still deal with the problem. You can do it very kindly.
Right.
But when you don't, and that bomb blows up, it's usually really over something so menial,
right,
and minor that when you blow up, it doesn't make sense. It's an overreaction,
right,
a grandiose overreaction,
right. And if you would have just confronted them to begin with, you know, because now the trust is broken because they don't know what they have done wrong, or, you know, I mean, it would have been a lot easier to deal with days, hours, months, years.
Yeah.
And by that time, you're literally walking around like a cartoon character with one of those boxes with the TNT that you're getting ready to push, you know, dynamite.
So true.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it actually does happen like that.
Yeah.
Some marriages actually go years with unresolved conflict.
Sadly. And I think we both have known and seen those people.
Yeah.
You know, when they're around, you know, you could just tell like, man, this is such a loveless relationship. There's just a distance between them.
Yeah.
You know,
it is tragic.
Or they're just friends. You know, they're just really good roommates. That's no longer a marriage.
Right.
You know, they're just have become roommates almost. So sad.
We both have experienced moments of that, right? Everybody's far from perfect. You figure it out as you go.
Right.
So I was thinking, what are some ways you're 4 months into your marriage? I'm 20 years into mine.
Yes.
So there'll be some differences.
Right.
but what are some ways in this short time where you've navigated that well? And what are some ways that not so well?
Right. Yeah. Well, for instance, I would say ways that for me, if I'm navigating them well, I don't really pay attention to them as much. It's always the ones that poke out or the ones that I didn't navigate so well.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would say things like when I'm coming home from work in a bad mood or something like that, I walk through that door and I have a tendency to take it out.
Yeah.
But that's not really conflict avoidance. For Lauren and I, it's things like maybe the way she speaks to me. If we're driving somewhere, Lauren's real
a backseat driver. I've yet to meet a woman that wasn't.
I'm not going to be stereotypical here, but
I will. That's my job.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
But if I'm too close, and so honey, what are you doing? You're way too close to their bumper. You're going to hit them. Yeah. And of course, I'm almost blind anyway. I'm not that close, and so but it kind of steers up that. Hey, I'm the driver here. I'll take care of this. And
sure.
But I don't say it, oh yeah, sure. But under my skin a little bit.
So you're pushing that down.
I'm pushing it down a little bit. And then eventually it's like, well, why don't you just drive?
You're right.
And it's that lashing out right there.
Right.
That now her feelings are hurt. And it would have been much more appropriate in that circumstance if I would have been like, what, you're right. I'm sorry. I was a little close. I'll slow down a little bit.
That's a good example because we tend to think when we think of this topic that it's something that happens over time.
Right.
But it can also happen right there in the car.
Right.
If you don't express right when it happens.
Yes.
Honey, I really don't like it when you do that while I'm driving.
Yes.
Now she may come back and say, but you're scaring the life out of me. Right.
Yeah. This is our life.
But it's still the conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's the conversation that needs to be had.
Right. Because next thing you know, you go to dinner, somebody's quiet, she's quiet, or you're quiet.
Right.
And it really puts a hue on the night. Now there's just that, again, the elephants in the room. Mm-hmm. Ways I've navigated it right, though, is things like, parenting with Nolan.
Yeah.
She's made a correction that I didn't understand. And rather than not say anything, I've addressed it promptly and said, hey, well, why did you do that? I would have done it this way, or I've done it this way for a long time. Why do you think this is best? Okay. And she'll explain her reasoning. And I've never even looked at it that light, and boom. That makes total sense. Right. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't need ice cream every single day,
right?
Especially if he's acting up or something's going on. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a treat, or maybe that's something that, that he earns.
Yeah.
Just a small example, and I could have fought it and said, you know what? No, that's not how we're going to do it, or snuck it even, mm-hmm. or just, resented the fact that she was doing it that way. But that's a good example. What about for you? I mean, obviously you've had 19 years and some months on me, and then some, and then some. What are some of the things? Could you?
Yeah, it's over 20 years because we're 21 in August.
There, yeah.
So I can remember some specific moments. Like I remember talking about doing it wrong.
Right.
When we first got married, it's like you've talked to us before about how just living together and learning how to live together is such a challenge.
Yes.
Or can be. I imagine there are couples out there that hit the road running, man, and they don't, for some reason, ever struggle with that.
Right.
I think the majority struggle with that, at least to some degree.
Right.
And so one of our struggles was about clutter in the house, right?
Yeah.
And definitely not throwing my wife under the bus. No. She was just a little more cluttery than I was.
Right. Sure. Right?
Yeah. But she had a lot more stuff than I did. It was much easier for me to tidy my stuff up.
Right.
My 4 or 5 things in the bathroom.
Yeah.
As opposed to her counter with 7 million things on. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But that bugged me so much, and I would just swallow it.
Right.
In the very beginning.
Yes.
And just move on.
Oh.
And I did that for a while.
You're speaking my language.
Until boom.
Yes.
It was something silly. I don't remember the specific thing that triggered it.
Right.
But it was dumb.
Right.
And I erupted.
Yes.
And it's just so preventable.
Absolutely.
It's so preventable. You don't have to, you can actually have the hard talk. And actually for people who are, really scared about confrontation or just really like, I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. You don't have to be scared because it's the person you love the most in the world.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you might have a disagreement. You may not, that person may not like to hear what you're not liking.
Right.
But it's still way better than lighting the fuse on a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, you're communicating at least.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, you would say that it's wrong in that circumstance. Something's wrong in the bathroom. A lot of parents, when they see their kid's room messy, I'll just shut the door. That's avoiding the conflict.
It really is.
So you don't suggest that, in other words.
Just closing the door?
Yeah, just closing the door. Like that makeup's fine right there on the counter. It looks good.
I think it's probably best to, and you don't have to mention it right that second.
Right.
Like if you're on your way out to church, not a good time.
Now's not the time.
No. When you get home and you guys are changing into more comfortable clothes or something, you could say, you can think of something to say kindly.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, I really am not, I don't want to upset you in any way.
Right.
But I want to see if we can find some common ground on how to deal with this, whatever that may be.
Can I get you some bins to put all this in?
I feel like I can get a few things that can totally organize our bathroom in a better way.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that just, instead of shining a negative light on her,
right,
we shine a positive light on how we can improve the bathroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So that's a great example.
Yes, exactly. You see that one with that liner in it? We're going to put everything in that one.
Yeah. With the liner
that trash can. Yeah.
All the times that we get it right.
Yes.
And have gotten it right in our marriage, it has always involved James 1. It has always been be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry.
Right.
And I haven't gotten that right every time.
No.
I wouldn't even make that claim.
Right.
But when we have gotten it right on both of our parts,
right,
it's always involved that because of the kindness and the spiritual element to it.
Yeah. And that communication between both of you.
Yeah.
To be, I'm going to hear her out and vice versa. She's going to listen to you as well.
Absolutely.
And cooler heads will prevail.
Right.
Yeah.
But the key is that's a key, but talk.
Communicate.
Don't ignore it.
Right.
So whenever we've gotten it right, we've approached it with that in mind, James 1.
Right.
But we've approached it.
Right.
We didn't like, we're
going to do this
don't
all
worry
the way.
about it.
Yeah.
Because it just sets you up for a bad situation.
Festers.
Yep.
Yeah. Like a wound. So me being 4 months into this marriage and you being now 20 years into this marriage, what are, if I might ask, what are some of the ways that you and mom make conflict now as opposed to maybe where you were at my stage?
Right.
For instance, Lauren and I, being that it's a new marriage, it's very difficult. I don't know if it's very difficult, but it's different. Courting, the honeymoon stage, now turning into the marriage, and how living, like we had just talked about, living with that person every single day, some of the different idiosyncrasies that both of you share, some of the things that didn't rub you the wrong way, now rub you the wrong way a little bit. And the shine comes off it a little bit, right? I mean, the shine I don't think is ever really gone. I mean, you could answer that, of course, better than I could. But does that shine ever come off, A? And what are some of the things that I could look forward to, and maybe some of the pitfalls that you fell into that you could advise me out of? Hey, steer clear here. For instance, the church thing. On the way to church, now's not the time. Yeah. Now is not the time to do it.
Yeah.
So what are some of those things you think?
Okay, so to answer that, the shine, I'm not sure I'm totally down with that way of describing it. Okay. But yeah, I mean, marriage becomes very challenging,
right,
from time to time. And yeah, the shine comes off.
Right.
But with regards to challenges at your stage, 4 months in,
right,
I can remember specifically getting into several arguments on the way to church.
Oh,
you're fighting in the car all the way to church.
Right.
Sitting in the parking lot at church, fighting at the church. Kids are rambunctious in the back seat.
Yes.
And we have to get these kids, and it's a lot of kids.
Grab your Bible.
Grab my Bible
yeah.
and go inside.
Yeah.
And you can see it on our faces.
Yes. And smile with these people.
And then this is one of the things I can't stand, and this is just a sidebar. One of the things I can't stand about myself,
right,
when I walk into church, is that I have just gone through that situation. Somebody comes up and they're like, "Hey, Wayne, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm good, brother. How are you?"
Yeah,
and I'm
so
completely different.
Yes.
So fake.
Yeah.
When I should have just said, "Bro, I really need you to pray."
Right.
I need prayer actually right now. Can you pray with me?
Sure.
But that rarely ever happens.
You
know what I mean?
Yes. And that's at a restaurant. That's anywhere, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's a snide remark across the table. Waitress comes up and, yeah, I'll take another Diet Coke. Thank you.
Right. Right.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Now, kids, you just said with the kids in the car, that is such a difficult thing when you guys are conflicting and you want to avoid it because of the children. Nolan being 8 years old, having gone through what he's gone through already.
Yeah.
There is a tendency for me, if Lauren and I are bantering, and it's never, I want to preface all of this whole episode and say there's never a fight. I would never say that we fight. It's just,
differences.
A difference, a disagreement, maybe, but there's never a confrontation. It's
when you say bantering, what do you
bantering?
Mean?
Back and forth
in disagreement.
In disagreement.
Okay.
I would say in healthy disagreement, but in disagreement nonetheless.
Yeah.
But feelings still can be hurt in disagreement.
Of course.
And so Nolan's in the back seat, and you just want to avoid it. Hey, let's talk about this later. And a kiss happens wherever you are, and it gets swept under the rug.
Yeah.
Because of the sheer fact that you're not really paying attention to it. Hey, it's been resolved. In your mind, it's been resolved. Maybe not in hers, though. And then next time, it'll come back up again. And so
those are maybe some of the easiest to roll over.
Yes.
And then forget to come back to.
Right.
It's very easy. You have to be very diligent.
Right.
And did I interrupt?
No, that's perfect.
So my family and your young family,
yes,
had and have unique challenges because we're blended.
Right.
And a marriage that has plenty of disagreements and conflicts.
Right.
Just on average, you throw blended into that equation, yes, and it doubles it.
Oh yeah.
I think it doubles it.
Sure.
I mean, that's debatable.
Right.
But looking back at my life, it might have done more than double it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about what are some of the conflicts we're dealing with.
Right.
And how can we not avoid the confrontation,
yes,
and deal with them in a healthy way.
Right.
So what are some other little things that you find yourself going through?
Dealing with.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
At the 4-month mark.
At the 4-month mark. Lauren and I like to be together all the time. And so I would say that would be the main kind of argument, because we are around each other so much. It's just the little things of the dishes, or it's this, or it's that, that pop up, like you were saying,
from the living
together. Yeah. That'll get under her skin, get under my skin. Hey, why do you have to vacuum right as we're leaving for church?
Yeah.
Literally, it's 2 minutes before. We're going to be late either way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I mean, but there's a few little crumbs on the ground. I really need to. This OCD is not going to fix itself.
Yeah.
I got to vacuum it. So,
and being prompt, being on time is such a pet peeve of mine.
Yes. And I love Lo to death, but she's notorious late. She likes to be late.
I love that you call her Lo. Her name's Lauren,
yeah,
but he calls her Lo.
Yeah. She likes to make that presence, that celebrity entrance, so to speak. And for me, my dad always taught us, like, 15 minutes early is on time.
Yeah, that's how I know too.
That's just kind of how I grew up, and so I like to be everywhere on time, if not early, just so I can kind of scope everything out, see what's going on.
And both our girls like to be
right on it.
Late.
A little late. Yeah, exactly.
I'll just say
so
late.
Some of the ways that I've learned to go with the flow is go with the flow. Is just, you know what? Hey, this is not the end of the world. Every relationship that I've ever heard of, one of the biggest ones is, where do you want to eat?
Oh, yeah.
In the car.
One of the biggest marital dilemmas there are.
Yeah, exactly.
On a daily basis.
Do we have to have Chick-fil-A again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then I think to myself, this is not going to be my last meal, hopefully.
Yeah.
So if it is,
it could be.
Yeah.
I guess technically.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if it's one of those big double doubles from In-N-Out. Definitely could be my last one.
Yeah.
So, Dad, what are some of the ways that you are, what's currently going on with you guys? I mean, obviously it's going to be different than what Lauren and I are going through.
So. Yeah, it is different because we basically are empty nesters.
Lucky.
I never thought I would get to this place.
Yeah.
Honestly, we still have Hannah.
Right.
She's almost 19.
We got to throw you a party.
We hardly know what?
We need to throw you a party.
We hardly know she's here.
Right.
And we do have Emily and her kids here.
Right.
But for the most part, as far as parenting goes,
it's done.
We're empty nesters. We still are parenting Hannah, but it's adult parenting.
Sure.
Changes. So, and Leanne and I work a lot. I'm off a lot more than she is. And then sometimes we're working opposite schedules. So we don't see each other all the time when I'm at work.
Yeah.
But we spend a lot of time when we're off together, and we eat out. We go out to dinner a lot.
Yes, we
on
do.
Dates. What?
We all do.
Yes, we do. Shout out to Yard House.
Yard House.
Yeah. So our challenges are different at this point. Some of the things we deal with are chronic things that have gone on for 2 decades.
Okay.
Where Mom is still dealing with some things in me where God has really brought me out of a bad place when we first got married, and I'm in a much better place now. Yeah. There's still our sanctification is slow and daily
in process.
It's a process, and so there are still some sinful things in all of us,
right?
And I still have some things that surface from time to time that we have to deal with.
Yeah,
some irritability,
right?
Bad moods.
Sure. We're human.
Yeah. That stuff seems to happen to me more than with Mom.
Yes.
Even though we're in our 50s and, ladies can go through a hard time around then.
Oh man, absolutely.
But she's handled it like a champ, and we're very happy.
Yeah.
We're very happy married couple. Yeah. But when we do have conflict, it's some of the things you've already said. Where are we going to eat for dinner?
Right.
If it's not Yard House, which we eat there a lot.
Yes.
If it's not there, that's one of the things about eating out all the time.
Right.
You've eaten everywhere. And so you're like, I don't know. Where do you want to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to eat?
Sure.
And then my girl doesn't like to make the decision. And then often it's left to me. And then and then you make the decision, and then you head that way, and you're like, and then she's like, I don't want that. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Now,
it's a minor challenge.
But as far as I'm going to ask this question because being 20 years into it, for Lauren and I, if there's a disagreement, it's a game stopper. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, the honeymoon stage is still kind of there still. And so, I would say it's definitely there.
Of course.
So if there's any kind of disagreement, it's like
earth shattering.
Just took a needle to the balloon. For you guys, it's obviously not that way anymore. You guys, hey, can you turn that down? I'm trying to do something, even something like that with Lauren and I, it's like, oh my goodness, World War III just hit.
Really?
for you guys though, you guys play off each other so well that it can turn into a joke so quick. And
it can, but it can still go south.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Believe me.
Yeah.
We're far from perfect.
Right.
And I'm certainly far from perfect.
Right.
And I would say I probably tend to start most of our junk.
Yeah. So do I.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I hate having that title.
Yes.
But I think that rests on me. But,
yes. What are some of the ways that you think that you're growing through that though? In the process of sanctification, some of the things that maybe you're focusing on, whether that's in your word, whether that's in your prayer life, whether that's just, the daily process of growing closer to God.
Leanne and I talk about this all the time. Like I'm like, honey, if I'm ever being a grump, if I'm ever seeming snappy, if I'm ever seeming like I'm in a bad mood, or if I'm being mean in any way, right, or irritable or whatever, any of that stuff, generally it's because I have not been close to the Lord that day.
Sure.
Our sanctification is daily. His mercies are new every day.
Right.
And we're to seek his mercies new every day. And spend time with him every day. That's how the Holy Spirit sanctifies us, through that daily coming back to him.
Right.
And if I miss a day, or if I miss a morning, and I'm in the evening now, and all this whole day has been rough for me,
right,
rougher than it needed to be, and relationally with my wife, she picks up on it.
Right.
And I've told her that's more than likely that's the problem.
Yes.
So it's a direct correlation that my sinfulness in my marriage, the things that happen with me that cause conflict,
right,
and with her,
right,
it comes back to our current status in our relationship with Christ.
Your closeness.
Yep. Our proximity to Christ.
Right.
In that moment.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I know that if Lauren and I get away from praying with each other at night, or if I'm not in my word as much as I need to be, if I'm not living out what I'm reading, then everything is off a little bit. My way of thinking, the way I speak, the way I react to things, the way I react to my son, everything.
It affects everything.
It really does.
And, I still find myself trying to, how did you word it a minute ago? You said, how did you word it? Anyway, I don't remember exactly what you said, something to the tune of roll with the punches.
Right.
And I still find myself trying to do that.
Right.
When I'm upset about something that I know is silly.
Right.
Right. But I know myself really well.
Right.
And I know that if I do that, even with the minor stuff, eventually that's going to rumble out of me.
Yes.
If I stuff those things down.
And why is that? Yeah, because I do the same exact thing. Like if it's on my tongue, if something, I feel slighted or something is even said, it sits on me. It sits on me. Again, like OCD, like it's explained to me, like, did I lock that door? Like I have to go. If something is said to me, it has to come out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've never had an unspoken thought, so I don't know. So,
and I can say the same thing.
I need to take James 1 into account.
Yeah.
And be very slow to speak and quick to listen. So
I pray that I can have that mindset more frequently. As I grow,
right, right.
But yeah,
and live with our wives in an understanding way.
Amen.
Right.
Yes.
1 Peter.
As we talk and I think about all of this, I can remember a very specific time frame in our marriage where we swept a lot of things under the rug. Both of us did, and it went on for months and months. Until we literally almost got a divorce in 2013. It was a terrible year.
Wow. And
it culminated to that point from taking those types of steps, ignoring things,
just
pushing them down, and it boils over.
Right.
And it was very challenging, but the Lord healed us through all of that, and we came out of it stronger than ever.
Right.
And I think that a lot of marriages kind of hit boiling points.
Right.
But you come to moments like that in your marriage, and you have to decide and choose all over again.
Right.
We're married for life.
Yes. Yeah. So you would say it's definitely, it's work.
It is.
It's work. It's not, we talked to, I know we don't prefer the word shine, but it's it's definitely, you got to put on that tool belt and get to work. It doesn't just come easy. You have to choose it daily.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just get in your car and put it in drive.
Right.
You have to steer it.
Right.
You have to invest and do work in your marriage.
Yes.
You have to pray a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't pray nearly enough.
Right.
I never have been a huge prayer. I pray.
Right. Of course.
But I don't pray enough.
Right.
I really don't, even at 55 years old.
1 Thessalonians says pray without ceasing.
I've been a Christian for 37 or something years.
Right.
And it still baffles me that I don't pray more than I do. And I don't pray with Leanne as much as I should.
Yeah.
Which is mind-blowing as well.
Yeah. I'm so thankful that Laura and I started that from the very beginning of praying with each other.
Yeah.
Praying with each other at meals, praying with each other at night as we just lay in bed,
Mom and I love that. We talk about
the most intimate times, which, you feel weird, because it's like, but even in those most intimate times in our marriage bed, I'll put my hand on her and we'll pray, and it just,
that's awesome.
And it's thank you afterward, thank you to each other, because I love the way she prays to God. And I listen to my wife talk to the creator of all things about her husband and how much she loves him and is thankful for him. And I do the same thing, and I ask the Lord, don't let me speak anything to her that you wouldn't say about her. Things like that, and it really does put things on a good note.
Yeah.
For us.
That is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And Mom and I talk about that, and we're so impressed with you guys about that. And as you talk about that, avoiding conflict or dealing with conflict in a healthy way is proactive. It's not reactive, it's proactive.
Sure.
So what we're talking about right now, and that is pressing in to the Lord and maintaining our relationship with Christ first, and going to church and worshiping him.
Yes.
And reading his word and doing all of the spiritual disciplines where we're meditating on his word even, and we're praying with our spouses, and we're doing these things.
Yes.
That is also setting ourselves up to avoid conflict.
Right.
It's a proactive thing.
Yes. Like going to the gym is, proactive to, being healthy. It's the same type of thing. You're training, for it. So also something that has been going on in our marriage, and something that, you might be able to help with and give some kind of advice to, speak to. And that is, for me, the gym. As you know, I've been a power lifter now for many years, and more than that, just love going to the gym. I'm just a gym rat, I guess that's what they call it. I've done it since I was 16. My dad was a power lifter, so I grew up in the gym.
Right. And
so it's something that I love to do. Sadly enough, I've spent more time in the gym than I have in church. I just have always been a gym guy. Some of my greatest mentors, men in life, have come out of the gym for me. But in this day and age, I went to a gym for a long time, the Hog Pit Gym. Shout out to Mr. Wheeler. But I went to the gym up there for a long time, and it was a key. You opened it with a key. Okay. It was just a personal gym. And so there was no women that were there. It was just me and a bunch of older guys in their 50s and 40s and 60s.
That's great.
No men or no women at all. Right. It was just men. And so there was I didn't have to even think about, anything else. It was just a bunch of old powerlifters. But now I find myself going to a local gym, and even the big box gyms nowadays. It's a co-ed experience. It's a
different animal.
It's a different animal. It's the old singles bar. It's everybody's trying to impress everybody and take pictures of themselves in the mirror, and girls are coming in and in absolutely nothing and
wearing nothing. Yeah.
So Lauren, she struggles with that, with not only being just insecure about me going into a place like that and working out, but I find myself struggling with it because it's all I have left as far as the gym is concerned. I no longer have, my little personal gym that I can go to. And so I go to the gym when I can. And, but it is it's something that's come up where she has a hard time dealing with that. Maybe it's a little jealousy, and I understand it. And I struggle with it as well because, I just want to do what's right for my wife. But selfishly, I won't tell her that I'm going to the gym. I'll just, hey, when I get off of work, I'm just going to creep over there and just hit a quick hour and come home. Or I'll just say, hey, I'm going to run by the gym real quick, and I'll just do it. And, then I can tell when I get home, like, well, was there anybody there? Or, did you, what was going on? And so I guess my question is how do you deal with something that is selfish to you? It's a hobby for me, but it's a selfish hobby, right? It doesn't involve her. It doesn't involve Nolan. It just involves me. And it's healthy in my frame of mind, however, it's something that is hurting her, or something that is conflicted in her mind, and something that she's not 100% comfortable with. I'll say that. She's not 100% comfortable with it. And selfishly, I just want to go to the gym. I just want to keep on being me with that.
I get it. Like Leanne and I aren't going to the gym presently, but at the times that we have gone to the gym, we've experienced that same dynamic. She has been worried about women at the gym, and I have actually also been a little jealous at times.
Right.
With, these muscle bound bros that are in there, showing off their muscles or whatever.
Right.
But when we have conflicting ideas, it's Ephesians 5. It really does come down to Ephesians 5 for us as husbands.
Sacrificing.
Love your wife as Christ loved the church.
Yes.
People see that verse and they concentrate on the wives, submit yourselves to your husbands.
Right.
But he says the next sentence,
right.
Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And what's the picture of that?
Yeah. Sacrifice.
Laying his life down.
Right.
He laid his life down for us. We're to do the same thing.
Right.
For our wives.
There's no selfishness in that sentence or paragraph right there.
Exactly. So it's a smaller issue, the gym is, but I think that we have to approach crossroads on things like that in this way, especially if there's no common ground found.
That's what I mean.
Common ground can be found in a lot of conflicts. And let's be honest, this is a conflict.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
But when that common ground can't be found, God calls on us as husbands to sacrifice.
Right.
Having said that, I think common ground can be found with that.
Sure.
Leanne and I found it, and that was we went to the gym together. And that doesn't always work, right?
Right.
But it can most of the time.
Sure.
If you're deliberate about it.
Yes. Yeah, or even going early in the morning, when it's, again, just a bunch of old guys.
Right.
And me.
Right. You guys have a similar schedule, though, so
exactly.
You could probably make that work.
We can definitely make it work. I'll put her to work. Get her deadlifting. That'll be perfect. Yeah, for sure.
And she can tell you, don't look over there.
Yeah.
Don't look over there. You look at me.
Ahead. Yes.
You look at me.
Yeah, exactly. Put some chalk in my eyes. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
That's great. Yes. So what would you say is the godly way to conflict, to conflict, to have a confrontation, to have those arguments, because we know it's not avoiding it.
Right.
We know that it's not that.
Right.
And we know B, that it's not blowing up and having a temper.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that seemingly that you can take it the wrong way.
So many.
And so what would you say Scripture teaches us about the art of conflict.
Yeah, I think that the basis of it is Ephesians 5, like we already talked about.
Yes.
The roles and how we're to approach one another. But even deeper than that is 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll just read this really quick.
Please.
It says, love is patient, love is kind. It doesn't envy, doesn't boast, it's not proud. It doesn't dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs.
Yes.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Love doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes.
Yes.
And always perseveres.
That's great.
So when we have a disagreement, when we have some conflict arise,
right,
we have to remember what God has told us and commanded us to do, and that is to love our wives as Christ loved the church. And our wives are to remember that they're to submit to us. It's not a control thing.
No.
It's a godly thing.
Right.
And then we have to approach one another in that very moment, in that moment of conflict,
right,
with that brand of love.
Yeah.
Everything.
That checklist right there. Boom, boom,
yeah.
boom. Yeah, definitely.
Always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres.
Right. Yeah. I know we had talked earlier about Romans 12:18.
Yeah.
You know, if possible, you know, live with everybody in a peaceful way. And I think Paul obviously was talking about just everybody, the general population at that time. I think it definitely applies to marriage, but
Absolutely.
then he really breaks it down in 1 Corinthians right there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, what does that look like in a marriage?
Yeah.
And it's right here. Here's what it looks like.
Right.
And that is so good. And what was the line about not remembering?
Oh, love does not keep a record of wrongs.
Yes, and that's huge. You know, that is so big. That I know that's a challenge for anybody.
That flies in the face of all of humanity.
All of humanity.
You know what I mean? That
Absolutely.
is the world.
The world.
That is not how the world operates.
No. And yeah, absolutely.
Further in Ephesians 5, Paul says, love your wives as you love yourself.
Right. Yeah. No one ever hated his own body.
Right.
And he's absolutely, I mean, Paul's the man.
He is the man.
He's the man. Praise God.
Yes. So how do you deal with conflict in a healthy way? Biblically.
Yeah. Amen.